Look, no matter how good somebody's production is in the NFL, they're always going to have a down year. But after everything that's happened this offseason, I think there are a few players who are going a step beyond regression and might be headed into a full tailspin. Every NFL season, several players fail to live up to the sky-high expectations that we place upon them entering the campaign. And that certainly won't change in 2022. Whether it's injuries to the supporting cast, bad bounces, terrible coaching, or all of the above, several notable NFL stars are set for big-time regression this upcoming season. Now, this isn't to say that they'll be downright terrible, or that they'll never be good again. But multiple factors will prevent these guys from playing up to their usual standards in 2022. Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke is coming off the fourth 1,000-yard season of his career. He has recorded no fewer than 979 rushing yards in a season. So why are we expecting the two-time rushing champion to regress in 2022 and beyond? Well, you see, Elliott wasn't all that great in 2021. He would not have passed that 1,000-yard mark if it weren't for the 17th game, and the 58.9 rushing yards he averaged per game was the lowest mark of his entire career. Elliott just doesn't seem to have that same burst and quickness that made him one of the NFL's most dynamic weapons over his first 4 seasons. But that's the life of a running back these days. They're not built to last very long anymore. Truth be told, the Cowboys would be better off using the faster and fresher Tony Pollard as the #1 back. But you know Jerry Jones doesn't want to admit that the Elliott contract was a mistake. So he stays atop Big D's depth chart for at least 1 more year. Elliott is on the decline, and it may just be a matter of time until Pollard becomes the new RB1 in Dallas. Even if Zeke turned out to be useful in 2022, he's unlikely to hit 1,000 rushing yards or double-digit touchdowns again. Kyler Murray. Murray's struggles in the second half of the 2020 and 2021 seasons have been well documented. It is just so difficult to comprehend how he's virtually unstoppable in the first half of the season, and then the polar opposite in the second. There are several key factors, though, that have us concerned about Murray's upcoming 2022 season. Arizona made him happy by handing him a 5-year extension worth $230.5 million. But, oh look, the Redbirds added, then removed that mandatory study clause in his contract. That whole saga was really strange, but also very noteworthy. Does Arizona not trust Murray to do his homework or something? Even though he agreed to a lucrative extension, you gotta feel that his relationship with the organization is still rather testy. Oh, and Murray's top receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, is suspended for the first 6 games of 2021. Just go look up the stats and you'll see how awful Arizona's offense was while Hopkins was sidelined with an injury last season. And finally, Arizona plays the second toughest schedule based on their opponent's winning percentage from 2021. Their 2022 opponents combined for a 543 winning percentage, and you're asking Murray to get the job done without D-Hop for practically 1/3 of the season? Yeah, good luck, Kyler. You're really gonna need it. Drayvon Diggs. Diggs earned first-team All-Pro and Pro Bowl honors for one simple reason last year. He led the NFL with 11 interceptions, 2 of which were returned for touchdowns. The Cowboys certainly couldn't complain about those turnovers, but the catch is that Diggs was also awful in containing his assignment. According to Pro Football Reference, he allowed 907 yards and 4 touchdowns in coverage. Through 2 seasons, Diggs has already allowed 9 touchdowns in coverage. You need a lot of luck to rack up as many interceptions as Diggs did. He simply won't record that many picks again this year. In fact, I'd be pretty impressed if he managed to rack up even half of that. Unless Diggs suddenly refines his game in the coverage department, he is going to be a liability on that team more often than not. Dallas isn't exactly blessed with elite cover corners, so Diggs will always be tasked with matching up against the opposition's #1 wideout. As long as opposing QBs don't put the ball in Diggs' wheelhouse the way they did last year, it'll be wise to target him more often than not. And when he's not racking up all those interceptions, you'll come to realize he's not that great of a corner. David Montgomery. The Iowa State product would have hit the 1,000-yard mark for the second straight season if he didn't have to miss 4 games. At any rate, the Chicago Bears running back tuned in another solid year with 849 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 42 catches for 301 receiving yards. But there are several factors here that make Montgomery a buyer beware candidate in your fantasy football leagues. Diggs. For starters, he plays behind arguably the NFL's worst offensive line. Secondly, the Bears have another potential RB1 in Khalil Herbert. The 2021 6th-round pick showed flashes with 433 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in a limited role. Would anyone really be that surprised if new head coach Matt Eberflus ran a committee in the backfield this year? Montgomery is no longer the undisputed top back in Chicago, and the O-line will make it difficult for him to play up to his usual standards. So look for a down year from the Bears running back. Deontay Johnson. Johnson was handed a deserving 2-year extension from the Pittsburgh Steelers before the preseason. You gotta pay a young receiver who just posted career highs across the board with 107 receptions, 1,161 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But with all due respect to Johnson, it already feels unlikely that he's going to match last season's career year. It's not a knock against his talents, but more so the situation he finds himself in entering the 2022 campaign. Pittsburgh grabbed Georgia wideout George Pickens in the 2nd round, and the 21-year-old turned heads with a fantastic showing in preseason. Even if it is just a mirage, I mean, the Steelers still have Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, and 1,000-yard back Najee Harris as weapons. That is a lot of competition for targets that Johnson will have to deal with. Pittsburgh's offense should improve with Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett replacing a past his prime Ben Roethlisberger. But it may not be to the benefit of Johnson, who was always one of the first guys Big Ben would look to. Johnson will still make big plays and command a lot of attention from the opposition's top covermen, but another 1,000-yard season feels really unlikely. Don't be surprised if it's Pickens or Claypool who emerge as Pittsburgh's new #1 wideout in 2022. J.C. Jackson. The Los Angeles Chargers signed the 2021 Pro Bowler and second-team All-Pro to a hefty 5-year contract worth $82.5 million. The Bolts were heavily applauded for that move, because if Jackson lives up to that contract, this already loaded defense could reach another dimension. But history actually tells us that this contract will likely be a giant mistake. How many expatriate stars have actually remained great when they left Foxborough? Notice how Bill Belichick has always turned little-known guys into all-world players, especially on the defensive side of the ball? What did Malcolm Butler do when he spent 4 years away from New England again? Jackson was an undrafted product out of Maryland who Belichick turned into the centerpiece of his always stingy man-to-man defense. There is absolutely no guarantee that Jackson brings that same level of dominance to Ronaldo Hill's scheme in LA. Can Jackson lock down all those explosive receivers in the AFC West without Belichick and company guiding him? Only time will tell. Even if he's not a giant flop, we're still skeptical that Jackson will be a grade A coverman and the interceptions leader with his new team. Because, again, almost nobody fares better after leaving New England. Brandon Scherff. The Jacksonville Jaguars signed the longtime Washington guard to a 3-year contract worth $49.5 million in free agency. The terms of the deal are quite fair, given his age and long injury history, but we still have our doubts that the signing will actually pan out for either side. For starters, no team wastes more money in free agency than Jacksonville. So why expect that to change? This organization is a graveyard for veterans who chase the money to Duval County. That fact alone makes us quite nervous about Scherff. Secondly, as we previously noted, he has a lengthy injury history. Scherff missed 2 games in 2017, 8 in 2018, 5 in 2019, 3 in 2020, and 6 in 2021. You just can't expect him to play a full season anymore. And lastly, Scherff joins a woeful Jacksonville O-line that lacks elite talent now that mainstay center Brandon Linder is retired. That puts more pressure on Scherff to anchor this unit in front of Trevor Lawrence. All these factors add up to what figures to be a very disappointing season for the 5-time Pro Bowler. Tyler Lockett. Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett were one of the NFL's premier quarterback-receiver duos from 2018 to 2021. Lockett racked up 36 touchdown receptions over that 4-year span, and he exceeded 1,000 receiving yards 3 times. Lockett is only on this list, quite frankly, because Wilson is no longer on the roster. The Seattle Seahawks traded the disgruntled QB to the Denver Broncos in an off-season blockbuster, and they are rolling with the duo of Geno Smith and Drew Lock. not exactly an inspiring QB tandem. We know. Lockett relies so much on his speed and getting past defenders. It just so happens that Wilson is the NFL's premier deep ball thrower. Meanwhile, not to be Captain Obvious here, but Smith and Locke are not great deep ball passers. Secondly, you gotta think Pete Carroll will go back to his rush-first philosophy with Rashad Penny and promising rookie Kenneth Walker leading the backfield. Thirdly, DK Metcalf, not Tyler Lockett, is now Seattle's go-to receiver. So yeah, expect a down year for Lockett. 1,000 yards is a long shot without Wilson, and he may not return to his elite form until Seattle gets a true franchise QB. Good thing the 2023 draft is stacked with plenty of options. Robert Quinn. Back in 2013, Quinn posted a career-best 19 sacks. He posted 10.5 in 2014 and proceeded to reach double-digit sacks once over the next 6 years. And then, out of nowhere, Quinn racked up 18.5 for the Bears in 2021, which marked a single-season franchise record. So, what's more likely? Quinn pushes for 20 sacks again, or comes back down to earth and posts something closer to 7 or 8? Pretty obvious if you ask us, because unless your name is TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, or Aaron Donald, you're not gonna consistently push for 20 sacks a year. And Quinn no longer has Khalil Mack, or Akeem Hicks for that matter, to take away some of the attention from him. The Bears project to be one of the NFL's worst teams in 2022. They subtracted way more talent than they added after all. Quinn was a bright spot on a miserable Chicago team last season. Maybe he retains that Pro Bowl form, but there's absolutely no way he gets anything close to the 18.5 sacks he posted in 2021. Amari Cooper. 2 years after signing a massive 5-year extension with the Cowboys worth $100 million, Amari Cooper was traded to the Cleveland Browns in a cap-dumping move. Now, despite Cooper's accolades and strong production, the Cowboys only got a 5th-rounder for the 4-time Pro Bowler. The good news for Cooper is he's no longer competing with Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, and CeeDee Lamb for targets. The bad news is that Cooper is joining a Cleveland offense that doesn't exactly fit his skill set. He won't have Deshaun Watson for who knows how long, and Jacoby Brissett is a fine backup, but he's not going to make Cooper a star again. Also, the Browns have a rush-first offense spearheaded by all-world running back Nick Chubb. If Cleveland couldn't get consistent Pro Bowl production out of Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, what makes you think that they'll get that from Cooper? And finally, the Browns don't have a quality number 2 wideout to take some of the pressure away from Cooper. It'll be very easy for opposing defenses to focus on locking down Cooper without Lamb or Gallup in the picture. If Cleveland kept Landry or had a better QB situation in place, we would have kept Cooper off this list. But he's not exactly in a good spot to regain his Pro Bowl form following an up-and-down 2021 season, now is he? But which other NFL stars do you expect to suck in 2022? Join us in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.